Rahim. Innal hamdalillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa na'udzu billahi min shururi anfusina wa sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Ya ayyuhallazina amanu taqullaha haqqa tuqatih wa la tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منها رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allah Ta'ala says in Quran, Allahu la ilaha illa huwal hayyul qayyum. This is Surah Baqarah. Allah says there is no deity save Him, the ever-living, the self-subsistent, who sustains and protects all that exists. This is part of the verse that I just read, also known as the greatest ayah of Quran, Ayatul Kursi, in which Allah describes His qualities and attributes and calls Himself the only God. And that is the fundamental part of our faith. And without this concept of Tawheed, without this belief in oneness of God, we are not believers. And this deep belief has to come from our hearts and not just from our tongues. But who is Allah and how we define Him is the most difficult of questions, impossible to answer. The minds are bewildered when you think about it, and the sides of intellects fall short to grasp Him. In Surah Maryam, Allah mentions, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Rabbus samawati wal ard wa ma baynahuma fa'budu fastabir li ibadatihi hal ta'lamu lahu samiyya. Lord of the heavens and earth and all that is between them, so worship Him alone and be constant and patient in His worship. Do you know of any who is similar to Him? So Allah describes His attributes and then asks a rhetorical question. Do you know anyone who is like Him? In Arabic language, something called ta'wil or tashbih, when you try to describe something by explaining something similar. So in other words, Allah is asking, can you apply this ta'wil or tashbih to compare me with anything? And then He Himself answered these questions in Surah Shu'ara, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. There is nothing like Him, and He is the all-hearer and all-seer. So there is really nothing like Him that we can compare Him to. We can't give any analogy to ta'wil or tashbih to compare Him. There is no likeness to Him, to His nature or His attributes. As Imam al-Junayd rahmatullah say, only Allah knows Allah. No one else can know Him unless Allah Himself gives him that knowledge to know Him. So this is a tough question, and then has been for scholars in generation after generation throughout history. Imam al-Ghazali rahmatullah mentions with a beautiful explanation that it's so hard to comprehend Allah by giving a very simple example. Think about if you are trying to think how a food or a drink tastes without actually eating it or drinking it. Can you really know the taste of that food? No matter how other person is describing it, that this food will taste like this or this drink is tasting like this, unless you try it yourself, you can't really know. So this is the way he is explaining that without actually meeting Allah and seeing Him with your own eyes, you can't really tell how He is and who He is. But who has the capacity to see the glory of Allah? Forget about average people like us. We all know what happened to Prophet Musa alayhi salam. When he asked Allah to show him What Allah said, Lan tarani, you can't see me. But if you look at that mountain, and this mountain still exists, when I show the mountain my little appearance, then you may be able to see me. And what happened? The mountain collapsed and Musa fell down unconscious. So forget about human eyes, mountain can even stand very minor vision of Allah. And we all know when Prophet Muhammad went to Mi'raj and came back, and Abu Dhar radiallahu anhu asked him, did you see Lord? And what was his reply? Allah is covered with light. How could I see him? So the point I'm making is that Prophet Musa alayhi salam or Prophet Muhammad, when they were provided this opportunity, had limitation to see Allah. So then what is the way of knowing Allah when we can't even see Him? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered this question by Himself. In Surah Fusilat, this is Ayah 53. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Sanurihim ayatina fil afaqi wa fi anfusihim hatta yatabayyana lahum annahu al-haq. We will show them our signs in the horizon and in their own selves until it becomes manifest to them that this is the truth. This is a very important point I'm making. Allah will keep showing us these signs till the truth is very obvious to us. That's what He's saying. Remember, the only people who Allah will not make accountable on the Day of Judgment are those children who didn't reach the age of maturity, or those who are mentally ill or insane. This we learned last week from Khutbah. All others Allah will make accountable on the Day of Judgment. Why? Because all others Allah gave this capability to see these signs and to reflect and learn the truth. Allah gave us this intellect, but what humans have done it, use this intellect in a wrong way, engage in doubts, they want proofs, they want to spend time in arguments rather than reflecting their intellect, what Allah gave to see these signs within the horizon and within themselves. So Quran is a book for human beings, a guidance for every level of intelligence and knowledge. Not for scientists only. It's not a science book. It's a book of guidance. But it has a lot of description of scientific truth. Quran said 1400 years ago, and many are being proven now scientifically. But remember, science has its own limitation, and science is just one form of knowledge. There are many other forms of knowledge. To name few: philosophy, epistemology, social sciences, metaphysics, and you keep on adding human knowledge, it's never ending. And science is just but one form of knowledge. Islam has always encouraged us to gain what? Knowledge. To apply intellectual thought process, to participate in scientific reasoning. And this is an order of Allah, to go and reflect. Let me share a few examples of scientific truths that Quran mentions. In Surah Anbiya, Allah says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, أَوَلَمْ يَرَى الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَنَّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ كَانَتَا رَتْقًا فَكَتَّقْنَاهُمَا. Have not those who disbelieve known that the heavens and earth were joined together as one piece, one united piece, and then we parted them. فَكَتَّقْنَاهُمَا, we parted them. So what did Allah just say here? The earth was joined with heavens and then we parted them, made them separate. Does this allude to the new Big Bang theory which scientists all talk about, when all was a hot mass and things separated, which they don't know what to explain further, as this theory doesn't really tell the origin of universe, it just tells that there is a energy, time and space. Well, later there are general relativity theory which talk about cosmic time, and now newer studies with this background radiation and red shifts of supernova which they name dark energy, and they say with a negative pressure it's still expanding, and they don't really understand it. Look what Allah says in Surah Zariyat. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. وَالسَّمَاءَ بَنَيْنَهَا بِأَيْدٍ وَإِنَّا لَمُوسِعُونَ. And with hand we construct the heaven, verily we are able to extend the vastness of space after that. So humans are just coming to know this universe is expanding, but they call this dark energy, and Allah mentions this 1400 years ago. In Surah Fatir, Allah says, Yazidu fil khalqi ma yasha. I increase in this creation whatever I will. So this activity of creation by Allah never stopped since the very beginning. And scientists are observing this now, but they don't have any clue about it. There are millions of dollars being spent in CERN lab in Switzerland. This Hadron Collider, they keep on discovering different particles and subparticles, but they have no idea what it is yet. The Quran mentions it 1400 years ago. Few more examples I can mention with time. I have many. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allah mentioned in Surah Yasin, لَلشَّمْسُ يَنْبَغِي لَهَا أَن تَدْرِكَ الْقَمَرَ وَلَا اللَّيْلِ سَابِقُ النَّهَارِ وَكُلٌّ فِي فَلَكٍ يَسْبَحُونَ. It is not for the sun to overtake the moon, nor does the night outstrip the day. They all float in orbits. What is Quran saying here? The moon, earth, and even sun, Quran is saying, floating in orbits. When did the science found out the earth is revolving around the sun and moon around the earth? Maybe Galileo in 15th century talked about it. And what did the church do to him? They made him take back his theory, because per church, in those dark ages in Europe, what happened? It was earth which was the center of the universe, not the sun. And when did we find out that the sun has its orbit? Not before Edwin Hubble made the big telescope in 1920s. And when he saw this spiral nebula, and he named our galaxy what? Milky Way. And then the later studies found out the sun has an orbit called Orion. And it takes 230 million years for the sun to go around his orbit. And Quran mentioned this sun's orbit when? 1400 years ago. So who told all of this knowledge to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in that desert where there was no scientist or telescope? Of course, the one who created all these galaxies, he informed him. So this is a real in front of us, Quran, a miracle, a truth, which our intellects deny. Look what Allah mentioned in Surah Zumar, going to very minute things now. يَخْلَقُمْ فِي بُطُونِ أُمَّهَاتِكُمْ خَلْقًا مِنْ بَعْدِ خَلْقًا فِي الظُّلُمَاتِ ثَلَاثًا. He creates you in the wombs of your mothers, creation after creation, in 3 veils of darkness. How many coverings? 3. And what did we learn in embryology when we had this medical school learning? Around the fetus there are 3 coverings, or layers, we call it. Allantois, amnion, and chorion. And Quran talks about it when there was no concept of ultrasound or anatomy or embryology. So in reality, I'm trying to make a point that there is really no conflict between Quranic teachings and what human knowledge has discovered, except when human intellect itself shows its limitation. See, this another ayah I can mention, if the time allows. وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلُّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ أَفَلَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. We made from water every living thing. And we all know what scientists say. The earth was a fireball, cooled down, water appeared everywhere, earth was covered with water, and slowly life came out. And that's what Allah is saying. I made everything from water. So you see, this scientific knowledge, and many of these greatest scholars of Islam in history, they were scientists and philosophers themselves. You know about astrology. Still, we have stars named after Arab scientists. Still refer to algebra of al-Khwarizmi and medicine of Ibn Sina. And scientific discoveries, you can name many of them, made by Muslim scientists. When all the European students in their dark ages used to go where? Andalusia, to learn medicine and astrology from Muslims. And go to Baghdad and Damascus to learn humanities, philosophy and math and other ulum. And these Muslim scientists did not see any clash between science and religion. Actually, they just followed what Quran commanded them to do. To think, to explore, to learn more, to ask questions, to reason. That's what Quran says every few ayahs. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ أَفَلَا يَعْقِلُونَ. What was the first ayah which came to Prophet ﷺ? اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم. So this knowledge gaining is the first commandment of God. But at the same time saying the humans have these tools which have discovered many things, but they have limitation. And as science matured further, there has been and there will be conflict between Quran and religion. And whenever it happens, remember there are only two reasons. One, either we are interpreting the Quranic verses in the wrong way, or the science and its limitation are not explaining what Quran says. So remember these two things. Let me talk about a little bit of an area which has been a conflict for last century between Quran and science especially, and that is theory of evolution. We all studied this evolution in biology class. I studied when I was growing up in Kuwait, in very Muslim country in 1980s. And your kids, our teenagers, our school going, high school going, college kids, they studied in every school. You cannot go away without studying it. And when they come home, they are in a different mindset. When they go to college, they are in a different mindset. So this is a very conflicting area where our kids are growing up. And it causes doubts and has been caused doubts in the minds and intellects for generations, almost now. So did the creation evolve over time to what we see now? Science says yes. There is this Darwin's theory of evolution and natural selection. Did the dinosaur exist? They have found fossils who suggest that. Did the human exist 40 to 50,000 years ago? Archaeologists have found caves in Africa where there are human drawings dated back to that time, and they confirmed with carbon-14 methods. Pretty accurate methods they are. And very recently they found human bones and fossils in Africa, in Morocco, and they say that this is 350,000 years ago. Humans were there on the earth. Did Quran say no? Humans were not there 350,000 years ago? Well, I did not see any date written in the Quran when was the first human appeared, or Adam appeared. So, just trying to share a perspective. But this is a theory of evolution. And guess what happens when Darwin shared this theory in 1860? 60 years later, another guy comes, Henry Bergson, French philosopher, in 1927. And he shares this theory called creative theory, which nowadays you must have listened to the news. They call it intelligent design or creative theory. And what did the scientists do to Henry Bergson? They gave him Nobel Prize, 1927. He was against Darwin. Everything Darwin said, he said against it. And the same scientists who were very faithful to Darwin, now totally 180 degrees and giving Nobel Prize to Henry Bergson. So this is the state of human intellect, and this is the state of science. It's pretty fascinating when you think about it. This Charles Darwin, who I mentioned, originated this theory, and he wrote this book, Origin of Species. 20 years later, he wrote another book. Maybe he was mature enough at that time, in 1871, and he mentions there, different than when he mentions in Origin of Species. He says, humans have a single origin, and he called it monogenesis. It took scientists a century to confirm his postulation. In 1980, when they discovered what? Mitochondrial DNA, and combined with these fossil studies of carbon-14, now it's a general consensus in scientific community that humans, the Homo sapiens sapiens species, has originated from a single human in Africa. What does Quran says about human origin? In Surah Araf, verse 189, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Huwa allazi khalaqakum min nafsin wahida. It is He who has created you from a single person. And there are many ayahs like this. And neuro studies are showing this cytochrome C analysis, and you can study yourself, Google it, it's everywhere. that it goes against Darwin's theory of one origin for every species. But they are saying now actually every species had maybe one origin, and that's maybe we can approve of evolution. So that's what Quran is saying. Let me talk about another conflict which commonly we see. Evolution, scientists say, took millions of years. What does Quran say? Surah Al-Araf, verse 54. Inna rabbakumullahu alladhi khalaqa as-samawati wal arda fi sittati ayyam. Indeed, your Lord Allah, who created the heavens and earth in how many days? 6 days. Is it a conflict? We know that Allah created the time. He is beyond time. How long is the day of Allah? In Surah Ma'raj, he mentions himself. Ayah number 40. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ta'arujul malaikatu wa ruhu ilayhi fi yawmin kana miqdaruhu hamsina alaf sana. The angels and Ruh, which is Jibreel alayhi salam, ascend to him in a day that is equal to how many? 50,000 years. So, Quran says Allah created heavens and earth in 6 days. It means 6 periods. Each of it may be hundreds and thousands of years. Can this coincide with what scientists are saying, that it took millions of years? Another area where is very obvious clash, where theory of evolution says that human evolved from these primitives called Neanderthal and Homo erectus. And Homo sapiens sapiens is a closest relative, so that's how most likely they evolved from. So what did Quran say? The Quran says Allah created Adam and placed him in the heaven and then on the earth. Is this Islamic belief conflict with what evolution is saying? Well, there was 2 conferences which I know, one in Oxford and Cambridge, and all the Muslim archaeologists and Muslim scientists and scholars debated this issue. And the summary I'm sharing for those 2 conferences, they're saying maybe evolution was planned like this by Allah. Earth cooled down, His creation appeared, environment changed, creation continued to evolve till the appearance of what? These Neanderthals and Homo erectus, what scientists talk about. And maybe now the environment was suitable enough that Allah places this human on earth, which resembled these Neanderthals, but which was highly intelligent. Why? Because Allah gave him knowledge. Allah gave him this intellect that the previous generations didn't have. Remember when Allah was trying to place Adam to the earth, what did angels ask him? Will you place on earth one who will spread corruption and shed blood? How did angels know that humans would shed blood? Were they looking at these Neanderthals and asking Allah? Allahu Alam. So again, these are theories based on qiyas and just like scientific theory based on qiyas and inductive methods. There's a chance from 0 to 99%, maybe 94% is right and then wrong. And then other theories come in scientific community, and then they say, oh no, this is right. So as the science will evolve and as the new tools will be available, the reasoning is going to change. What reasoning is now in 21st century is not what was the reasoning last century or 500 years ago. But the Quranic words are, they are going to continue to be true, and not even one ayah is deniable. It's very amazing. One of the Allah's name is Khaliq. وَالَّذِي لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا هُوَ الْخَالِقُ الْبَارِيُ الْمُصَوِّرُ. We say that, yeah? Khaliq or Mubdi, who begins all things out of nothing. And what is the name I mentioned? Khaliqul Bari. And what Bari means, Arabic friends know here. The one who evolves creation, who molds it to perfection. So this Bari itself means evolver.